A very good evening to one and all present. Today, we are here back again for the second episode of the podcast series with Actify. The topic of today's discussion is From Classroom to Cubicle, Bridging the Gap for Entry Level IT Professionals. And for this topic and discussion about it, we have with us Mrs. Manjusha Verma. Manjusha Verma is the director of Focus Management Consultant Private Limited. She has an experience of over 20 years in the recruitment industry, having hired for IT consulting companies like Accenture, IBM, TCS, Capita UK, to name a few, and also for various global captives like Bank of America, Morgan Stanley, Barclays, etc. She has an experience in the lateral hiring, executive hiring, contract staffing, and has won several accolades for her expertise and experience in recruitment. Thank you so much for having joined us today for this session, ma'am.
Thank you so much, Kritika, for inviting me. Pleasure to be with you.
We are highly grateful to have you here with us. I think we chose the best speaker today for this particular session. So thank you so much for having joined us.
Thank you.
So,
Looking
beginning with
forward.
a set of questions for you, I would just like to know what do you think are some of the knowledge skills as well as key skills or knowledge areas that entry level IT professionals should possess once they complete their school graduation and then enter into the industry?
Sure. So, what's very important for entry level, of course, whatever background and this course that you get with primarily determine, the scope of you being looked at very positively. So it's very important to get good GPA scores. The project work that you do has to be very, very good. Also, spending time on doing a very good internship is key, and also to be aware of the skills. Like, obviously, when you're presenting yourself for an interview with any company, you should have done some good amount of background research about them, understanding what they need, and then sort of presenting yourself in a way that will match and suit their requirements. And the second aspect, very, very important, is that all candidates must look out to polishing their presentation skills. Communication is a key aspect. And when I say communication, it's not just about speaking well, but being able to perceive, to being able to relate, and to being able to really establish that contact and present yourself very well. All of these things are very, very important. Apart from this, very good problem solving skills. Obviously, in the IT industry, problem solving skills are the key. So honing up and tuning in and to really, um, presenting good solving skills is very important. And by and large, the entry level professionals always need to undergo a test, any kind of test, aptitude test, attitude test, or psychometric test. So really going through all these repeatedly will give them an edge, because obviously there's no barometer to check by way of experience. So the only way is to check entry level professionals is through their scores, is through their attitude and their aptitude and these psychometric scores or any other tests. So from that point of view, to have really, sort of undergone many of these thoroughly so that you are able to present the best possible thing is very important. Finally, I want to say that in today's industry, it's not just IQ, but EQ, which is also being valued quite a bit. So to really, if to understand what is IQ, they should really go through some classes. And EQ is not something that's static. You can dynamically grow. So to sort of probably take a few sessions, because it's not always the skill that you're being hired for as a fresher, but it's for your aptitude and for your EQ. So really trying to hone this up would be really important. Yeah.
So, having stated this, what do you think are some of the strategies that you generally use to ensure that you attract the entry level IT professionals? And how do you ensure that you get a diverse pool of candidates?
So, Kritika, are you asking me this for my own company, or is
Yes,
it
yes.
industry in general?
No, for your company specifically.
All right. So, typically, when we try to attract entry level people, of course, I always look for attitude and aptitude together. We look for IQ, EQ. I always look for people who've had, who face some challenges to really see how they've overcome those challenges. And I also look for good communicators. When I say communicators, I'm not looking for the best in terms of accent, but I'm looking for someone who has got listening skills, who's able to articulate very well, and who's able to understand and really sort of reciprocate to the point. So these are some very important skills. So the other things which I look for is some achievements that they've had in their life. It need not be necessarily academically, but in any other way, maybe in sports, in society, or I would look at their hobbies that they've had, because through their hobbies you really understand how they utilize the spare time that they have, you know and what kind of discipline that they have. Do they have a learning mentality? Do they have a growth mindset? Are they ambitious? What is it that really drives them? These kind of parameters really help us understand what the person is all about, because we are hiring based on potential, you know and to understand what that potential is and whether we can unravel that potential through the efforts of that person is very, very important. So having said that, there are a lot of candidates out there, and especially in today's market, you have more supply vis-a-vis demand. And what we also the other aspect that we look for is stability, because in the current generation, stability is the key. Many times people want to just get a little bit of experience and then they want to move on to the next thing. But a lot of times, they don't understand that unless you've worked in an organization for a certain amount of time, you can't really sort of solidify the skills that you are supposed to have. So stability is another key issue that we try to figure. Of course, it's also the onus of the organization to ensure that we are keeping the candidate engaged or the employee engaged and to get the best out of him. But having said that, stability is something that we need to ensure that the candidate definitely has. And also, especially at a time when we're trying to have freshers, we need to see that they're groomable to the next level. So especially when we hire, we see that, can this person come into the next level? Can he lead a team? Can he actually interface with clients? Can he do some other things? So if there is a promise of that, even though the person may not carry that right now, we would look at them to be hired. Now the second question that you asked me is about the diversity, right? How can we really hire diversity? So that's something that, of course, in today's world, I don't really see that at entry level being an option, because we have a lot of both males and females coming in applying, and they're equally good. And having said that, we personally don't keep academic qualifications as the top key. I personally look at people who have a problem solving mindset, who have that a fighting spirit to really make things happen, who are passionate about their work, and who are real go getters. That's the thing for me. They have to be go getters. They have to be someone who will get the work done no matter what. So it's not about trying to do their best. We look at through various interview techniques to see whether they can get the job done no matter what. So these are the things that we really try to do. And as far as, of course, we give them 2 or 3 different kinds of tests. We put them through a couple of interviews. People ask us that for entry level, why do you need to have so many different levels of interviews? But I personally say that these are gems. They are unpolished gems. If you can pick up an unpolished gem and polish them, they could be your future for your own company. They could become pillars for your own company. So therefore, we take a lot of care in hiring, freshers. So it's not an easy task. People think it's the easiest task to hire freshers. Actually, you are looking for raw diamonds whom you can polish. So therefore, you have to be very, very careful. Yeah. I hope that answers your question.
Ma'am, that beautifully answered my question, because I think through this answer, you have kind of given a takeaway for the students to, make the most use of their free time, to utilize it in ways by which they can contribute to their own credibility in the industry. And at the same time, I think even you have contributed to the employers out there by helping them understand as to how your scores are not the only thing to be considered when you, plan to take any candidate inside, but it's also the other aspects such as your skills, the way you can flourish in the industry, that matters a lot. So this was a definitely beautiful answer to the question that I asked. So moving on to
Thank
the
you.
next question, are there any specific challenges unique to retaining entry-level IT professionals in the industry as such?
So, so when you say entry level, if the person is stable anywhere between 6 months to a year to 2 years, by and large, they'll be stable. The instability factor comes within that 6 months to 1 year, which is when this engagement period happens, to see if they've settled down, are they interested, are they engaged, are they performing well, etc. So if you are able to handhold them and if you are able to stabilize them, that becomes a key issue. And the stability issue right now, which is a key essence, that's something that we do have a lot of challenge with. But if you are able to stabilize them at this stage, you will be able to take them along in the company. So the other thing that is, of course, the salary matters a lot. Yeah. So, and of course, it's not always that you can give a jump to them. Most of the time, people want to jump. Okay, I've got 1 year's experience. Now let me look on for something else. Right. So, but what happens in this process is when people jump jobs too often, and if, like, for example, after 3 or 4 years, you look at a resume that the person, and this happens with most of our customers, they see that the person is hop jobs every 2 years or every 1 year, immediately they reject the CV. So what is given better weightage is stability in an organization. And I'm not saying this even for freshers, I'm saying this for very senior folks. I've seen marketing heads being rejected, that why did he jump jobs so often? So it does tell a story about you. It does tell a story about the person's mindset. So stability in an organization for anyone is very crucial. So running after that little bit of increment may give you, a good hike and things like that, but it doesn't give you much in terms of experience and exposure. So that's something I really want to convey, that this is important. Stability is very, very important. And a lot of times people also leave for higher studies, which is normal, which can happen. But of course, that's something we have to go by. And that is one of the reasons because of which people may want to shift. And that happens typically in the first few years when they've said, okay, now I don't want to continue and I would like to study further. So I think these are the challenges, that not to run after the salary hikes, but to look at good work, to look at it long term, that how is it going to contribute to me? And from the employer side also, if you look at it, how we can really sort of train them, because training is a very important aspect of retaining teams, to ensure that they are being upgraded, upskilled, right? Because right now they're raw. So how do we sort of give them that extra kind of a training that will help them stabilize, And especially in the IT industry, upskilling them is a very, very important thing, because the moment they're upskilled, because even the cost of upskilling them is equivalent to an increment in the salary, When they try to understand that, they'll understand that if you're getting trained over here, it's much, much better and more than what I could ever get. And in an IT, in the ever-changing IT scenario, every 6 months there are skills changed, right? So if the company is supporting them with that kind of upgrade, with that kind of skilling, it would, bode very well for the stability of people. So while challenges are there, there's something that we can work out, and it's something that we need to look at from both the angles. It's not like a one-sided story, and it changes for changing scenarios, changing markets, changing skills. So every scenario is different, but by and large, if you really look at it from both angles, I think it should be sustainable. I hope that's answered your
Yes,
question.
yes, that's definitely. I think this whole podcast, although this was like a very short one, but I think you have just summed up the whole topic in a pretty much nutshell. And there's so much takeaway for all the entry level people who are just coming into the industry with so many questions. So I think just in a couple of questions that I've asked you, you have holistically covered a very good picture for everybody to get their questions answered that they always pondered about. So thank you so much for joining us today. It was really amazing to have you with us, and we are very, very grateful to have you in this particular session, ma'am. Thank you so
Thank you,
much.
Kritika. And maybe in the, if there are any questions that come up, specific questions from students or freshers, we could, probably take them up online and
Definitely.
help answer very specific questions. Yeah.
Sure,
Thank you so
definitely.
much.
Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much.